Hey y'all, it's Kita Love here, and I felt the need to talk about self-sabotage. I feel like it's something that we don't talk about enough in a loving and compassionate way. And there's so many ways that self-sabotage can show up in your life, especially as a creative or a Black woman or a queer person. So I just wanted to just talk about what that means and to hold space for us to process what it looks like for us if we struggle with it, to show up inside of self-sabotage. And I wanted to come up with this format and this very structured way of talking about self-sabotage. But I really just want to share my experience and my story. And I feel like there is this attachment to self-deprecation when it comes to self-sabotage. If you struggle with speaking positively to yourself or affirming yourself and knowing that who you are is more than enough, where you are with what you know, if you struggle with that mindset, then it can be really challenging to shift out of it in a loving and compassionate way if you were not taught to learn to manage your own experiences and emotions, especially because we grew up in a society that wants us to be a certain way, to live a certain way, to have this picture perfect image, even though circumstances do not even allow us to live this dream in this very linear way that we grew up thinking is attainable. But it's there are so many ways to be, there are so many ways to exist. And even if you do want that picturesque, perfect life, there's so much shit that needs to, excuse my French, there's so many things that need to happen to allow you to align and to shift into that space. If you have barriers, if you have obstacles, and that can be physical, mental, emotional, spiritual obstacles. There's so many obstacles that can happen when you're trying to show up in this world. So let's talk about what self-sabotage is. What does it look like? What does it even mean? And according to verywellmind.com, self-sabotage occurs when people hinder their own success. When people take these destructive steps, their harmful behavior can negatively impact nearly every part of their lives, including their relationships and careers. And I also saw that self-sabotage occurs when we destroy ourselves physically, mentally, or emotionally, or deliberately hinder our own success and well-being by undermining personal goals and values. And if you are an empath or grew up being a people pleaser or just didn't have any understanding of boundaries or who you are as a person, what it even means to use your voice, then self-sabotage is let's not even talk about mental health, but self-sabotage is something that can very easily occur. If you were not taught to affirm yourself or to see what was going well in your life versus all of the obstacles and potential hurdles that can occur, then it's very hard to move through that. So I personally have struggled all of my life with feeling worthy of being seen and understood and received in a positive way. And I think a lot of that stems from not being able to name my emotions, not feeling safe enough to experience my emotions, and just being afraid of being judged, of seeming like I don't have it together. This constant need to prove who can look like they're better off despite the internal or external struggles. But as long as you look well, then it's fine. But that is not us honoring our whole full human experience. And we do ourselves a disservice by showing up in a way that is actually false to what we've experienced and what we know to be true for ourselves. And so it gets into this cycle of like just assuming things will work out negatively, like assuming things that will not, assuming things that you want to go your way, assuming that they won't. It's so much easier to lean into things not being well. It's so much easier to lean into like, oh, well, gotta walk on a tightrope, or the other shoe might drop, what all those sayings are. And instead of leaning into the excitement and the possibilities of making your dreams come true, especially if you don't have a blueprint or you don't have an image that looks like you don't have a representative that can show you the possibilities, it can, how do you move through that? What is the self-regulation, or how do you even begin to imagine what it can look like to shift into a different way of being or existing? And so I just want to honor that for people who maybe don't have the imagination or the ability to even see or think outside of the box, because it wasn't something that they were exposed to. It wasn't something that they even know that they could fathom. And so I want to honor that space for you. But for the people who have just came out the womb and they were just like, be weird, like, excuse me. For people who just came out the womb and they're just like, oh, I know who I am, like, it's fine, like, I don't have to struggle with who I am, but I still don't know how to get to a space of like moving through that. Like, self-sabotage will continue to show up and shift us from what we actually want and what we actually desire. And if you want to know the roots of self-sabotage, this website says that childhood trauma contributes to the initiation of self-destructive behavior, but lack of secure attachment helps maintain it. Patients who repetitively attempt suicide or engage in chronic self-cutting are prone to react to current stresses as a return of childhood trauma, neglect, and abandonment. And a lot of people grow up in broken households. And so, like, how are we supposed to have like healthy attachment styles when we've grown up with parents who have their own burdens and hurdles, parents who were not able to access their own needs, parents who might dump on their children, parents who don't even acknowledge their own emotional needs? Like, how are children supposed to show up in a way that allows us to feel safe, to feel secure in our relationship to ourselves first and foremost, and then in our relationship to other people? Like, that is challenging in itself. And so I don't know if you ever taken the attachment style quiz, but I'm giving the energy of avoidant attachment style. So like wanting intimacy, wanting connection, wanting to be affirmed, but not necessarily feeling comfortable with asking for it or receiving it. And so it's this constant like tug and pull of like wanting to be close and feel connected, because it's natural for us to want to be in community, but also being terribly frightened of it because we don't want to get our hopes up. We just want to continue to feel safe inside of this space that we've created for ourselves, that we have had to do so much work to create for ourselves. But in doing that, we isolate, and that's only part of the work. Self-isolation can help as far as like moving through self-sabotage, but we're naturally communal beings. So what does it look like to show up in space where we learn to honor ourselves, but also honor other people? and just learn to navigate that space and try our best to be compassionate and to hold space for other people's human experience, while also dealing with our own triggers and traumas. And so that can be really challenging because not everybody will have the awareness, the self-awareness, to move through things that like aren't well. Cause like, I don't know about you, but like once you trigger, like sometimes it could be hard to pull back. Sometimes you in it and you just like, forget it. It's a done deal, burn it to the ground, like whatever. And so like, it's just so important to learn to kind of figure out what those triggers are, what makes you get there. And then how do you learn to just balance out those emotions? And what does it look like to be in space where it ain't safe for you to show up as yourself versus when you can actually work through those emotions and experiences in certain spaces? Because everybody ain't a safe space. Like, that's just what it is, and it's unfortunate, but like everybody has their own process and journey. So how does it feel to be you? How does it feel to be that? Okay, my bad. So continuing to figure out what it means for you to like navigate through certain circumstances, situations, figuring out what you need in certain moments is so vital for you being able to thrive. And it just shows up in so many different areas. So it's so important to just become aware of that. And it's unfortunate when we like care about certain people and love certain people, but where they are on their journey is not conducive to your own well-being. And so like it can create this habit, this habitual need to continue to be in spaces that you're familiar with but that aren't well for you, because you're like, oh, I know how to navigate this is fine. Like you might even think it's your call, and you might even be like, oh, I need to be here for this person so that they can get better. And sometimes the best teacher is you taking care of yourself. Sometimes the best teacher is you showing up for you. Sometimes the best teacher is pulling back, reeling in, and like figuring out what your triggers and traumas are so that when you go back into certain spaces, you will be able to stand firm in your own experience. And even if you can't necessarily stand firm in your own experience and when you're back in a communal environment, like being able to send yourself compassion while you work through that and to hold space for yourself in this very new and unique way. So I just want to just remind us that self-sabotage does not mean that you suck as a person or that you can't navigate it or that it's like even your fault. Like there are so many reasons why self-sabotage is really ingrained in who we are as a society, especially if you're from America, especially if you're Black, especially if you are just a minority of any sort. Like you're literally taught to think less of yourself. And a lot of self-sabotage is just like not feeling worthy, not feeling capable, not feeling intelligent enough, not feeling smart enough, not feeling loved enough, not feeling whole enough, not feeling safe enough, not feeling secure enough, not feeling like you have the strength or the power to navigate, or you have the strength to use your own voice, like you don't have the ability to trust your own intuition, your heart, and your inner guidance. We have to work through a lot of that when it comes to self-sabotage. So at the bare minimum, if you don't get anything else from this video, it is not your fault. It is not always your fault. You have to become aware first of all the things that might have happened to have you get to this space so that you can then reclaim it and rework it and rewire it in a way that like will help you shift, because you deserve that. You deserve to take up space, because this is, I don't know about y'all, but it seems like the suckiest people be thriving. I'm just gonna say it. Like people who literally have no conscience and really don't care about other people seem to thrive the most. And that is because there is this level of confidence and awareness and just queendom and kingdom that occurs within them where they're able to move through spaces and not hold attachment to things. And I believe that that is a superpower. So like, especially if you are an empath, like you can see and observe and feel and experience everything outside of yourself, but it can be a struggle to process and to feel what you need to feel for you. And so if there's one lesson that you want to take from those people, is to not give your energy away to every single thing, to learn to regulate it in a way that allows you to be like, oh, I see you're having that experience, and to have compassion for it, but not feel like you need to carry it, if that makes any sense. And I just want to say that it is normal to have repetitive thoughts and to recreate the same circumstances over and over again, to recreate the same emotional experiences over and over again, because our body, our minds, our spirits hold memory. And so it does require some work to begin to shift outside of that and to welcome in new experiences. You have to feel a level of safety and security within yourself. You have to feel grounded and rooted in yourself before you can even imagine what it means to let in some new experiences. Because honey, especially as an earth sign, I'm an earth sign. And so like, it's given very much so like, no, I know what it is. I'm intuitive. No, absolutely not. I already read you. Goodbye, good day. But like, sometimes what I'm experiencing is a projection of what I'm comfortable with experiencing. And so like, yo, back up. Sometimes you got to create space for people to show up fully before you project, or you have to like allow people to shift, because if you continue to see them in the same way, you're not even allowing them the space and the grace to evolve as a human, which is not fair to them, and it's also not fair to you. But it is fair for you to continue to protect yourself. So if you can know the difference between something that just doesn't feel well versus your own internal dialogue, then continue to practice that and lean into that. And a lot of what self-sabotage is actually accepted in this society. So a lot of the time, self-sabotage can look like procrastination. It can be perfectionism, chasing perfectionism. It can be self-medicating. Even acknowledging that you might be a self-sabotager can be challenging, because it's like, no, I don't do that. But if you're watching this, then you probably have a relationship with self-sabotage, and that's okay. This is a safe space. Like, go through your process. So I think just becoming aware of it first and foremost, and recognizing what the root cause of it might be, can be very beneficial. And that is not easy or light work. So if you feel called to do that work, I'm proud of you. Lean into it, ask for help when you need it. You don't have to do it alone, but you do have to do the work. Nobody else can do the work for you. You have to do it. You have to choose to become aware. You have to choose to ask for what you want. You have to choose to ask for what you need. You have to choose to become aware of what's working and what's not working. It can be knowing what you need to do, showing up for it, but then allowing your anxiety or your fears to surface in a way that doesn't allow you to show up as the version of yourself that you want to. Anxiety, depression, all that stuff can be a part of self-sabotage. So it's also given very heavy on mental health. And so if you've ever experienced like just feeling bad about like not being able to show up in a different way, or to navigate things in the way that you should in theory be able to do, like, judging yourself and being critical isn't helpful. It's just not helpful. Like, there is a reason why you're showing up in this way, and it's a chance for you to become aware of the why. Become aware of the why. Be curious about it. Be curious without judgment, so that you can start to learn to navigate and move through it. And I just can't say this enough. Like, ask for help. Like, we don't have to do this thing alone, okay? Okay. And I've personally had to hold a lot of space for myself to like navigate through my own self-sabotage. And the reason I feel so passionately about this topic is because, like, I literally deal with this. Like, I have had to move through so much self-sabotage in my life. And a lot of it was, like, me just not feeling safe enough to hold space for myself or to even acknowledge any, like, mental health discrepancies or, like, just not feeling safe enough and secure enough and not knowing what to do with all the things that I felt and perceived. And so I just want to say that, like, it's so important to hold space for yourself, it's so important to show yourself so much compassion and love and gentleness. And, like, as you continue to become aware of that and lean into that, it can just make all the difference as you shift. And so just holding space for myself, breath work, yoga, just trusting my intuition more, becoming aware of what feels well and what doesn't feel well, okay? Mantras, mudras have been helpful. There's so much that we can do to reclaim our own existence. And so before I head out, I just wanted to share a mudra and a mantra that can possibly help you shift through some self-sabotage. When you try these practices, really feel it and lean into it. So this mudra that I'm about to show you helps you move through your fears, helps you gain clarity, helps you move through addiction, helps you relax, helps you build self-confidence. And you basically just are going to take your thumb and put it in between your middle fingers and just hold that for as long as you need to. And this mudra will, again, allow you to shift from lacking self-confidence, from your fears and those obstacles, to continue to shift and to release the negativity that might be plaguing you right now. And also a mantra that is helpful is Om Gam Gana Pataya Namaha. And that is the mantra for Ganesh. In Hinduism, there is a elephant deity that will basically just help you move through anything. And typically the image will be an elephant with like a long snout, and it'll be on a rug or a carpet or something, and there'll be a rat below their feet, because I don't know if it's a woman or a man, will be there, and rats can literally chew through anything. So Om Gam Gana Pataya Namaha. Use that mantra when you want to move through anything that might be holding you back. And I'm gonna leave you with a bonus, okay? Now this might be my all-time favorite mantra. I don't know, but I think this is the one. And it's so hum. And it basically means I am. To remind yourself I am, and that be more than enough, is sometimes all we need to come back into our bodies, to come back into this space. So whenever you're feeling overwhelmed, anxious, depressed, anything, remind yourself so hum. Repeat it as much as you need to. So hum, so hum, so hum, so hum. And really feel it. Feel it going through your body and reminding you that who you are is more than enough. So I feel like it's going to be important to talk about the different ways that self-sabotage show up in our lives. And so I'm going to start a series or a talk where we just talk about how self-sabotage can show up in relationships, show up in our relationship to money, show up in our relationship to business, mental health. Like, we're just going to, creativity. Let's just vibe out and talk about how self-sabotage shows up and how we can continue to honor it and move through it. If you stuck around this long, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Definitely subscribe and like it and comment. Okay, bye.